Sort of when you are full of life and you enjoy the things that you do, the activities, you enjoy the relationships you have, then the devastating realization that, sort of strikes you every now and then that it's got to come to an end is just truly awful.
How old is an old person?
Probably about 18.
How old are you?
Be 85 in October.
I'm so curious to see how it's all going to work out. And of course, I'm not going to at a certain point. I'm going to stop seeing.
I would say getting older is like probably about after 37.
I think it's when you're about 20 or something, because you get a job and everything and then you finish university. So then you basically got an experience.
I think the answer to the question would depend on whether I was able to develop as an individual in radically new ways. I think if I remained the same person, very much fixed in identity, I think at some point I'd probably decide to take my own life.
So if you could live to any age, if you could live to any age, what would it be?
Oh,
I know.
I would want
18th of July, I will be 86.
67 now, yeah. 68 in November. No, sorry, December, yeah, 24th, yeah. Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve?
Yeah.
You have to do the same things as you are as younger, and it's much easier doing the same things when you're younger because you're more fit.
Your brain tells you you can, but your body tells you you can't.
You need sometimes a little bit of help, and it's not always there.
It's like you can't do anymore what you used to do. And so you fell asleep.
You get problems like kidney problems and heart. Dementia.
Dementia? What's dementia?
I think my granny's gonna get dementia because she keeps on calling Louis Charlie. So you can get heart problems and your blood pressure can get down, and you never know when you're gonna die or not, because as you get older, you don't know what's gonna happen in the future.
Life expectancy is increasing in the UK today at the rate of 2 years for every decade that passes. That's 5 hours each day. It's the biggest change confronting humanity in the 21st world. It's much bigger than climate change. Make no mistake, this is humanity's greatest success. It's not, as some people would have us believe, sort of an unfortunate experiment in sort of human survival that has gone disastrously wrong. When you hear some people talk about the burden of all these old people around, you would feel that this was something we never wanted to happen. Well, of course we wanted it to happen, because people actually don't like dying.
Think about aging. You have two different sides of it. I mean, you have the maturational side. You gain in maturity, you gain in wisdom, you change with age, and that's something that I like very much. As I get older, in a way, I feel more comfortable with who I am, and it seems in some ways I'm getting better. But the other side of aging is the deteriorative side of aging, which is really what we study, in the lab. And I'm really frightened of that.
We're probably more scared of death now than people were in previous generations, because death is pretty rare in most of our experience until it happens to a very old person.
I think the concern that most people have when it comes to aging is not so much shortening of their life or even death, it's disability. People aren't afraid of dying, they're afraid of having to have someone else take them to the toilet.
I think as long as I'm still healthy and able to do things, I'm okay, I think, you know. Yeah, but then when I get sick, people have to look after me, you know, because then I'll be a burden to them, yes. And I suppose I will start feeling miserable, and then they, it will be their job to look after me, yeah, carer. But they're gonna maybe get fed up with me, yeah, you know. So they're humans like me. We are all humans. We are, yeah.
Couldn't have been me. It's been a year, 2 years actually.
As far as I can see, it takes an awful lot for somebody to want to die as opposed to be alive. And I don't know whether that's fear of death or whether it's that there's enough enjoyment left in life that they don't want to lose that enjoyment. I suspect it's the latter mainly. I think what most people are afraid of is suffering, not of dying.
Aging is, you know, sort of a journey that is challenging, it's exciting, and ultimately it's heartbreaking. I mean, you know, sort of when you are full of life and you, you know, sort of you enjoy the things that you do, the activities, you enjoy the relationships you have, then the sort of the devastating realization that, you know, sort of strikes you every now and then that it's got to come to an end is just truly awful.
I don't want to live too long because it's going to get really hard.
Yeah.
And
What would be hard, do you think?
yeah, you would get
to
problems.
walk and and to get around the place.
But you'd get a wheelchair. Yeah, an electrical wheelchair. I think it just gets quite hard, even though my nan and granddad are perfectly in shape.
I used to go swimming every day, and I have medals and a teacher's certificate. And I used to go every day swimming, but now I could go, get in the water, but I'm nervous when I come out onto that wet surface, and I miss that. I miss my swimming. But I like to see other people enjoying themselves, as long as they do sensible things.
I know you're slow at certain things and all. You know, you don't say running or anything like that. I'm all right walking and all that, you know. But you know, I couldn't do a 100-yard sprint or something.
I don't think my granddad knew he was going to die. I think he was just about to eat, and then just literally just faded away.
Yeah.
But he didn't fade away into darkness, disappear.
No,
yeah,
he just kind of...
Yeah, it's hot and it just stopped.
Do you think that's a good way to go?
At least you don't know it's going to happen, because it could happen any time.
The reason we age and die is just that in our ancestral past, when, you know, life was genuinely nasty, brutish and short, and there were many things that would see us off, you know, sort of usually at quite an early age, it was always a much higher priority to grow and to reproduce than to build a body that could last forever. And that tells us that aging is not something that's driven by a clock. Aging results from the gradual accumulation of the damage that affects our cells, tissues and organs as we live our lives. What we know about it is probably only 1% of what we need to know about it. This is massive.
At the moment, in the developed world, the major underlying cause of most of the mortal illness and severe illness is aging. Aging causes cardiovascular disease, it causes, you know, heart attacks and strokes and so on. It causes dementias, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, cancer.
It slips over into being a disease, in my view, when the loss of function becomes so severe that it really leads to major loss in quality of life. But what's equally clear is that the ageing process is a major risk factor for the development of ageing-related diseases. And that becomes particularly clear if you can make an animal live longer through a mutation or through making it eat less or whatever, because what you see is a broad spectrum protection against ageing-related disease. So what that's telling us is that if we can somehow ameliorate the impact of the ageing process, then we're also reducing the impact of ageing-related disease.
It's one of the great surprises of recent research on ageing, is that it turns out that ageing is something quite plastic, it's quite malleable. So in the organism that I work on, C. elegans, increases in lifespan of up to tenfold have been achieved, which would, for a human being, be equivalent to an increase in lifespan of more than 1,000 years. The way it works is that if we can find a gene, for example, that controls aging in the worm, we can then say, well, do flies also have this gene? And if so, does it also control aging in flies? If so, then maybe this is a universal aging gene and we can test it in the mouse and see whether it controls mammalian aging. On the whole, most people are of the view that reducing levels of aging-related disease is a fantastic thing. It's a route, potentially, to relieving suffering on an absolutely colossal scale. Then you have this second consequence, which is extension of lifespan, increased longevity. And there, people's views differ enormously. You get people who are very opposed and very concerned about that, people who are sort of in favour, and some people who are almost fanatically enthusiastic about the idea of life extension.
I was very young at the time, probably in my teens, but already I'd been thinking about ageing. Something in me had just triggered the thought that ageing was a very, very bad thing. I had this vision in my mind that as a child, your function kind of increases, you get more and more capable of over time. And then I realised that when ageing kicks in, that process goes into reverse and you get less and less function over time. It seemed to me a very bad prospect. And I was very interested in science as a child, so I always kind of assumed that science would do something about ageing. But I also assumed that that would be hundreds, maybe even thousands of years into the future, and it wouldn't necessarily help me. When I saw this article, which mentioned calorie restriction, I thought, well, my God, there's something that they can do about aging, and why aren't people shouting this from the rooftops? So I immediately thought, well, rats' scientific terms are pretty similar to humans. There's a good chance that it's kind of transferable to humans. And at some point, that memory remained with me, and I actually decided to put it into action myself, actually starting to cut down my own calories and see what would happen. What it means now is that I just have 2 meals, one meal of about 700 calories and one of about 1,000 calories. What it is I don't want to deteriorate, and I would actually also prefer to not to have a fixed lifespan. So say at the moment, you can say to an average guy, well, you're going to live to 75, probably, and you don't have any choice about that. So he's basically been told he's in this box, he said, well, you're going to live from there to there. I would actually like the end point of my life to be indefinite. I don't personally see any reason why you wouldn't want to go on forever. But at this stage, I mean, how would I know? There may well be a reason, I just don't know what it is.
How old are you?
53.
So if you could live to any age, if you could live to any age, what would it be?
Oh,
I know.
I would want to be 1 trillion years old. It's not even a number. Because I want to be the oldest lady in the world.
Why?
Because I want to live for long.
What do you think would happen if you lived to be 1 trillion years old?
I think it will be amazing.
You don't mean by, well, putting batteries in you and all that, you know what I mean? You know, or going around with, like a robot, you know what I mean? Oh, I think, no, yeah. I don't think science, well, I don't know, should interfere with your life.
I think you can live as long as you want, as long as you lead a clean and good life. And try to give others the advantage of what you've learned through your life.
Samuel, if you could live to be any age you like, what would it be?
Infinity.
Infinity? You would live forever?
Yeah.
Why would you like to live forever?
Because you just know a lot of people.
Yeah.
Make lots of new friends, because you could travel to lots of countries and everything. And meet loads of new animals and everything.
It'd be good to live up to 105, 110 or 100, because then you could help people and tell them about history and everything like that to help them learn.
What would be your perfect age?
Well, that's a very hard one. I should imagine around about, say, 100, 125, something like that. I don't think it's possible afterwards, I don't know. Because the world would be full of old people otherwise, wouldn't it? And I think you've got to give the younger people a chance.
Up to, even up to 80, it starts to get really hard to live. So 1 trillion and infinity is a bit too much, I think. So I would say about 100 for me.
What will be my perfect day? Well, two sides of my family, I've known people who live 202 with their intellect. Mind you, if I reach to be 100, like our little Elizabeth here, I would be quite satisfied.
I'd sort of know when I wanted to die. I wouldn't exactly know the second I was going to die.
Yeah.
But I'd sort of know when I sort of felt like I've seen everything and I'm ready to die. And once you're ready to die, your body seems to understand that.
Let's say, what about 200 years?
Oh, good God, no. That's over the limit. Asking a bit too much. Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't like to live very, very long. There's certain time it stops, isn't it? Things stop, you know. No, there is certain time when you got to stop. I don't want to live forever. What's all that, you know? When time comes, especially if you're not well, when God calls you, then you go, you know.
I find it very difficult to put a number to, sort of my preferred lifetime. It depends on, how the journey goes. There are things that I would like to see happen. planted a lot of trees over the last 10 years. I would love to see them grow up. I have children in their middle 20s. I don't have grandchildren yet. There are scientific discoveries I'm really curious about. I will feel very cheated when the end finally comes, because there will be things that I would love to know the answer to that I will not know the answer to.
You were saying that you could live forever. How would you fill all of that time you have? What would you do?
Probably, when I'm a bit young, I would have like 10, I would play, go to school, when I get older, I'd have an education, go to college, university, get a job. And then when I finish my job, I'll probably just act normal, really.
And all that time I would spare in my whole life, I'll get to have more opportunities to do stuff and to go places like
you might be quite old.
Tangier, I don't know.
If it was clear that I had, say, a doubling of my life expectancy, I would have to think in terms of radical changes. I mean, I think at the moment I would guess that, I'll continue doing research for the next 15 years and then retire. And then I'll have a sort of period of retirement. And I'll stay with my wife, until the end. But I think if I had another 100 years, then I would be very seriously thinking about the length of my career and when I would make a complete change. Maybe go back to university, retrain as something completely different. Whether my marriage would last for another 100 years, I actually rather doubt. And from either end, I think. I'm not sure that marriage would make sense over such a long period.
And who knows, I might fall in love at 108, sort of with some amazing person and really want to live on to 200. These are things that you cannot forecast.
I always think the terrible thing about having to die at some point, or one of the terrible things about having to die at some point, is that, I'm so curious to see how it's all going to work out. And of course, I'm not going to at a certain point. I'm going to stop seeing how the world changes and, what big events happen, what new discoveries are made. I'll never know. And I think one of the nice things about living a bit longer is one would just see a bit further into what actually happened, how the story unfolded.
I really would like to think that anybody that I come into contact with in my life, then I leave them better than I found them. That's sort of one element to my philosophy. And the other is to really to make your life different. If it's the same as hundreds of lives that have gone before, to me that feels a bit pointless. I feel that you should have some kind of individualistic take on life and have a life which is different to others and really lived to the furthest extent possible.
I think that, sort of however long or short my life ends up being, I would like to be able to look back and feel that, sort of the time of my life was good. Learning to be content and at the same time, aspiring to achieve more, to do more within the kind of the framework that we have is ultimately what life is about and is ultimately the route to fulfillment and to happiness.
Let's have a look. How big? Look at the size of that. That's a monster, isn't it?
Well, I suppose life itself. Being alive, being able to talk to people, to do things, to go places. Just enjoy what you've got.
Usefulness, finding something to do. Reading, gardening, sewing, mending.
Well, the best thing about being alive is to see your family, basically. So without your family, it's quite hard. You don't have any relatives and stuff. So I think it's your family that's most important when you're alive.
For all those years, because I love the world. I love the world. I want to stay there as long as I can because I love the world.
Well, it's often said that life's what happens while you're making other plans, isn't it? I think I feel a bit like that about it myself. I think often the things I enjoy most are incidental things that come up, you know, going out for a walk on Sunday and, you know, suddenly seeing some wonderful countryside or natural history of some kind, a particularly good novel that I wasn't expecting, families suddenly doing things that make them very happy. Of course, anything to do with new arrivals in the family is always a wonderful thing. I think just lots of different things, not all of which are terribly easy to anticipate.
I sort of think, like, sort of the world is like, because that's how the world sort of made us, and yeah, we need to look after it because that's how we are here today. Including the world, I think the universe is, because the universe made the world and the world made us. So basically, it's a universe. What would we do without, like, stars and the moon and the sun? Yeah. There would be no rainbows. And it would just be a dark, dull world.
We were sent on this earth to live a life, and you've got to make the most of it.
Why?
Well, what's the point of living a life if you're not doing any good or getting interested in things? It's no good just having a long life if you're just going to sit in a chair and watch things go by. You must get interested to keep your brain active.
It could be to, like, experience new things, because if you're, say you could be alive, and you don't take your chances, you probably end up not knowing stuff. So, like, some people, they don't eat food, but they don't try it because it doesn't look nice. Sometimes the things that don't look nice are very nice, and sometimes stuff that look nice can be nice or not nice. So it depends on you trying stuff, trying out new things, and seeing if you can do them or not, really.
Okay.
Well, I think that maybe heaven isn't there, maybe it's just nothing there. So when you die, you think you go to heaven, but you don't. And you might just die and then you forget everything and you're nothing.
So what's the most important thing about being alive then? Is it realising that?
Yeah.